First, I would like to say 我很羡慕你们, the other speakers, because I am the only one speaking in my native language. And all of you are amazing, speaking in second, third languages. I'm fourth. I'm so impressed with you. And it's a real privilege and honor to be here. I think my introduction sounded like a lot more than who I actually am, but it made me feel very proud. So my story begins talking about my family, and here's my immediate family. So I grew up with 2 brothers and my parents. As you can tell from the photos, I am a very short person in my family. And once I asked my mother, why am I so short? And she said, because she prayed for me that I would not be tall. Because she was always taller than everyone. So a little bit about my family. I think we're just a normal, average American family. Maybe middle class. I think when I was growing up, we were lower middle class. My mom and dad were both blue-collar workers. My father worked in a shipyard, and my mom worked in a primary school. Not as a teacher, but in the office. I had a very secure childhood, though. My brothers and we grew up in a small town called Port Orchard, and it's really a beautiful small town. I still consider it my hometown. Even though neither of my parents are from that town, and neither of them are even from that state. My brothers, I'm the middle. My older brother graduated from high school and became a soldier. And I graduated from high school and went to university, and I got a degree in biology because I thought I wanted to be a doctor. In the process of university, I realized there was no way I could be a doctor. So when I graduated, I had a big question of what was I going to do. My younger brother went to university also, and he graduated with a degree in business administration. Today, my older brother he works on the border of Canada. He works for Customs and Border Patrol. And I think our family is very happy he works on the border of Canada and not the border of Mexico. Canada is very safe. And he just has to say hello to Canadians crossing the border to go grocery shopping. My younger brother, he worked as a teacher in Japan, and then he worked as a financial advisor, and now he's a pastor, 牧师. So we've all gone different ways. Both of my brothers live in Washington State, the same state that my parents live in. I still live in China. Now, something about my parents. Well, first of all, how did I end up in China for 23 years? It's an interesting question. My father, he's from a very small town, and everybody he grew up with stayed in that small town. Nobody left. Nobody went anywhere. And my father grew up very poor and had no chance to go to university. So when he graduated from high school and he went to work on the Great Lakes. And he worked on ships that would cross Lake Michigan, taking people and cargo. And he realized one day that he would have no chance of a better life if he continued doing the same thing. And he decided to go in the army. And he had no idea about that. But he signed up for the army and they sent him to Bangkok. So my father lived in Bangkok, Thailand for 3 years. Shout out to Hanbing. So my father was the first person in his family that really even left the state of Michigan, and he left the country completely. My mother has a different story. Her father was an engineer, and he decided when my mom was a little girl that he would he had to move every 2 or 3 years for his job. And he thought, if I have to move every 2 or 3 years, then I want to see the world. So he changed his job and he started taking jobs overseas. So my first memories of my grandparents were of them coming home to America from other countries that they were living in. Places like Pakistan, Libya, Brazil. I don't even know how many different countries my grandfather worked in. So my mom, who grew up partly overseas in Ecuador and also in Thailand, she decided she wanted to raise her children in one place and not go anywhere. One town, one house, one place. And she got her wish. But before she even got married, she met my dad in Bangkok, Thailand. Ooh. So I am a product of a relationship that started in Thailand. No, my heart, we are like brother and sister. So now for my brothers, they have done the normal thing. So here's my whole family, and it's a lot of people. I have done nothing to contribute to this. So I'm on the end. My older brother and his wife have 4 children. My younger brother and his wife have 5 children. I never got married because I have been living and working in China my whole adult life. And I still get the story or the question, well, why not marry a Chinese? And I say, I'm almost 50 years old. Where can I find a suitable Chinese man? And I also say, 找不到合适的. And then they say, 你的条件太高了. And I say, but I like my 条件, so I'm not going to change it. Oh, just for reference, I'm from Washington State, and from a beautiful town near the water, so near the sea. It was a beautiful place to grow up. But not many people also leave my hometown. And my brothers are further away, but I'm really far away. There was one Mother's Day. My older brother was working overseas. My younger brother was in Japan, and I was in China. And my mom cried. And she said, not even one of my children is in America. And I think I'm a product of this legacy of my family, that living overseas was no problem, and it was an easy thing to do, and people did it. So the fact that I ended up living overseas is not so strange. How I ended up in China and staying so long, that's another story that I don't even know if I can explain, except to say I have loved being a teacher in China for some of the reasons that Yang Laoshi was talking about. My students listen to me like I'm a god. And if I say, oh, this is true, they say, okay. And I think, no, you shouldn't do that. But, so I have had great joy in teaching in China. When I first started teaching in Guangzhou, and yeah, I had the chance to come overseas to teach English. And I came, I knew nothing about China. I knew of Chairman Mao.
Okay.
And that's about it. And when I got off the airplane, I could say 谢谢, and I could say 你好. And even I thought this is not enough. I knew it was not enough. My first year in Guangzhou, I had one of the best setups. I taught at a small school, and I was the only foreign teacher, which was a little bit lonely, but I had a friend who was a foreign teacher at Guangzhou University, and she had lived in China for 4 years, and she spoke Chinese. And for anyone who is going to live overseas, it's so important to have a cultural informant somebody who can tell you about the culture and explain things to you about the culture. Without that, you will see things and you will make judgments based on your own experience without understanding really what's happening. And my friend Joy, she helped me so much in my first year. So she was a great influence and a great help. Ironically, I had another influence that also helped to make that first year good. But she was another American teacher who hated living in China. And she would say a lot of very negative things about China. And I felt in my heart that it was wrong, the things that she was saying. And so when she would say, oh, China, it's better in America, I would say, I love China, every time, because and I could understand some of her frustration. She had had some hard times in China. But when she would say negative things about China, then I would say overly positive things about China. And that also ended up being a really good influence on my year and how I lived. Because often I chose to look for the positive because she was looking for the negative. And most people hit a point in their stay in China where they start to feel the negative things more, and I missed that because I was working so hard on being positive. And so those were two things that were a good influence on me my first year. But I realized after 3 years in Guangzhou that I still could not speak Chinese. I could speak, well, the first sentence I learned in Chinese was 蚊子咬我打死它. And not very useful in everyday conversation. And then I also learned some Cantonese. So one of the things I learned was 恭喜发财, 利是到来. Like, you know, 恭喜发财 and give me some 红包. And I also learned 开口得意. So that's 他很可爱. So that I could say that about people's children and have some positive interaction. But my Chinese was non-existent. So at that point I decided if I was going to stay in China, I had to study Chinese. And that, I would call that the third important thing in what has made my experience in China good. Learning the language is so important. Even being inexperienced, I recognized that without language, you're lost. And also by learning the language of local people, you are showing respect for the culture, and you are showing that you want to learn and that you care about what people think. And so I studied Chinese, and my Chinese got better. I do have couple of funny stories about learning Chinese. Everybody who's studied a foreign language knows that inevitably you make big mistakes. And I was no different. Only my Chinese should be better now, but I'm a little lazy, so my Chinese is not better. So I make more mistakes than I used to. But one day, I went to the bus station. A girl had come to visit, and I was her dalyo. And I lived in Hunan, and I didn't know anything about Hunan, but I thought I should take her to Shaoshan, Chairman Mao's hometown, a good place to visit. But I didn't really know how to get there, except we should go to the bus station. So I went to the bus station and I said, 我们要去Shaoshan. And I thought someone will point to a bus, but everyone asked me a question, and it sounded like they were saying, do you want to go someplace else? And I was like, no, I want to go to Shaoshan. And that happened over and over and over. I would say, 我要去Shaoshan, and they would say, 你要去 a different place. And I would say, no, I want to go to Shaoshan. And finally, one lady, she just looked at me, and then she pointed at a bus. So we went and got on the bus, and we had a lovely time in Shaoshan. The middle of the next week, I realized what they had been saying to me. they had been saying, 你要去旅游吗? And I was like, no, 我不要去旅游，我要去小山. And so the middle of the next week, I just thought, oh, such a big mistake. And all those people, no, 不要去旅游. And I never went back to that bus station again. I did not want to show my face there. So language mistakes are one thing. Cultural mistakes are also inevitable and often more painful. And just recently, I made a stupid mistake on the train. And there was I was going to Hanyang to visit some teachers and have meetings with them. And there was a lady and her son, I was talking to them, and they were going to Hangshan. And after we were talking, she said, you should come to Hangshan. If you come, look for us. And I'm American, I'm very direct. So I felt like that was a real invitation. Like, you should come to Hangshan and look for us. And to my mind, it's like, but I can't. And so I said to her, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so busy, I can't go to Hangshan, which changed the conversation. She was just being polite, but by me saying, no, I can't, it raised me and it lowered her. And maybe half an hour later, I just thought, oh, that was the wrong answer. I should have just said, oh, if I have a chance, I will. So I'm a little ashamed to say, even after 23 years in China, I still make foolish mistakes. So I think one of the most important things, and something that smooths over so many mistakes, is to be humble, and to be polite, and to be a learner. I think those three things can help to make you a successful person living in a different culture. And soon I'm going home. My parents are elderly, you can tell from the photo, and they really need my help. And you saw my brother's children. It's much easier for me to help my parents than my brothers. So I will go home, and I'm leaving this 23 years of experience here in China. And my hope is that I will be kind, like my Chinese neighbors and my Chinese colleagues, my students, have been to me and are constantly kind to outsiders. And I hope I will be kind like that, and that I will be a good example to those around me of how we should treat outsiders. And it will be a little bit different because I won't be a Lao Wai anymore. I will be the Lao Ne. And I'm really hoping that I will be able to have a positive influence there. And one good thing about Chinese culture that has helped me in this transition, if I told American friends, oh, I'm going home, I'm stopping this to go home and take care of my parents, they would say, what? Why? Like, your parents can take care of themselves. But when I tell my Chinese friends I'm going home to take care of my parents, they say, of course you are. That is the right thing to do. And that's what I know in my heart, is that it's the right thing to do. But leaving China will be a huge loss to me. Thank you.